afternoon, everyone. This is OUTERSAC Conversation, and it's wonderful and awesome being with you again. And today, on this episode, we are talking with parents. This is parent support system, parents of young people, children living with different kinds of visible differences. Oftentimes, I personally have met with parents who are so worried and so disturbed about their children coming down with different kinds of conditions and not knowing how to manage it. So we have wonderful parents here who, to an extent, have worked with this and trained and brought up very confident children who can stand up to bullies and is doing well with themselves. Not like they don't have low moments, but I mean, you know what I mean. Okay, so here with me today are Sylvester and Tonya. And did I pronounce it right?
Yeah, you did.
Okay, and Kunle and Abimbola Bimbo, Oshokunle. Yeah, and okay, so I will leave Mr. Sylvester. He said I shouldn't put Mr., but I'm trying. I will remember the next time I will call his name. And Tonya to tell us a bit about themselves and their daughter, Zanita, and the condition she is living beautifully with. Yeah, thank you, Mr. Sylvester.
Thank you. Our daughter was born in 2006. As a rule, I was always in the delivery room with my wife. This particular time, after the labor, she was wheeled into the delivery room, and when the baby was brought out, she was too tired to see the baby. I remember the nurse was taking her away, and I followed the nurse, and I thought it was hair dropping all the way down to one side of her face, and I asked the nurse, why does she have so much hair? And she said it's not hair, it's birthmark, and she went on and on about how this is a special child, and I was worried because apart from that mark, there were others on her skin all over her, but she didn't see the child, and I knew I needed some answers to give her when she was ready. So she went to sleep. I think after that immediately she didn't get to see the child until within that period I had to search and talk to people. This is where I am. I don't know what to tell my wife. And she woke up and she was shocked. Like, what kind of child is this? Maybe she should pick it up from there.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think her labor was very fast, and I think the most painful of all of them. So when I had her, I didn't see her until the following day. Yes, so when I woke up the following day, I just said to him that I had the child since yesterday and I've not seen the child, that I want to see her. So he just said, I need to talk to you before you see the baby. And I said, what's the problem? He said that there's nothing. I said, okay. So he came to the bed and he said, there's something about the child. The child has one big mark on the head. I said, one big mark. Is the child sick? He said, no. I said, is the child abnormal? He said, no. I said, okay, I want to see the child. But when I saw the child, I started crying because I didn't know what the thing was. The mark is up to half of her head, the big black patch. And then she has all the polka dots all over her body. The pregnancy was normal, nothing. I was going for antenatal, I was taking all the medications, so I was really shocked. So the first thing that came to my mind, what will people say? So I was so scared. My mother saw the child, and my mother is a very religious person. My mother started crying, asking God what we did, why did he give us this child? So there was an elderly woman at the hospital. There was one of the nurses, they call her grandma. So she came to meet me and she said, why am I crying? That this child is a very special child. That this mark, you don't see it all the time. I thought they were just trying to make me feel good. So when we got home, I didn't allow people to see her. I won't lie to you. So if my neighbors were coming, especially one of my neighbors that talks too much at the back, when she's coming, I'm serious, my mom would tell me that, this my neighbor is coming, I'll quickly carry the baby to my room and we'll sit and gist with the lady, but I won't bring the child for her to see. it was difficult for me to accept because I didn't know what the thing was. Then he came home one day and he said he had done some research and he said that the thing is called pigmented nevus, sabi? So I went on the internet to read about it. The first thing I wanted to hear was the fact that it is not a terminal illness. That was my fear. So when I was convinced, a lot of people started talking to me. In fact, we took her to so many hospitals. We went to see the first female dermatologist in Nigeria. Yes, so we're going to skin clinic. Every time we go to that skin clinic, you know, you have to wake up 5 a.m. so that you can get a number.
Happy Road.
Yes.
Oh, okay, something will happen.
So one day, we went, the baby and I went, because I insisted I wanted to see this woman. So when we got there, they brought someone who had one very terrible skin problem and everywhere was just smelling. So of course everybody had to cover their nose, and in my head, I didn't know I can't tell you what was going on in my head because I did not know. But when we saw Professor Olumide, the first thing she did was to say, oh, I only read about this in the books. Call me all the young doctors here. And they brought all the doctors. He said, go and bring your biro and paper. You might never have this opportunity again. This is pigmented nevus that we are reading. So I said, Ma, I saw you on TV. That's why I traced you here.
Imagine.
She said, oh, my darling, nothing is wrong with this baby. Absolutely nothing. You know, in my head, I'm like, okay, I'm looking for a solution. I saw you on TV. I traced you to skin clinic. You are telling me nothing is wrong. There's a big patch on my daughter's head. She has black spots all over her body. She didn't even answer me. She said, you see, this woman might not bring this child here again, which was the truth. After they finished writing, as I stepped out of her office and I was leaving, I didn't know what to do. Like, you didn't tell me anything. She just said, nothing is wrong with your baby. As I stepped out of the gate, I stopped, I flagged down a taxi. A lady just came to meet me and she said, I don't ever want to see you in this hospital again. Nothing is wrong with your child. Take this baby home. I called him, I said, see what somebody just told me. The funny thing, I'm not saying anything, but as I turned, I didn't see the lady again. Yes, and that was the last time we went to skin clinic.
Wow.
Yes, that was the last time we went to skin clinic. So we said, we talked to her at home. She's not different from...
Yeah, okay, so we're going to come back to that. So let's, when you mentioned Harvey Road, an experience we all, and Professor Olumide, let me just say hi to you. Hi. So we'll come to you.
He'll start the story. Sylvester started the story.
Okay, yeah, about Dumomi and arriving and what it was like and, you know.
So our son is our first child.
Yeah.
And like most parents, you are looking forward to the arrival of your first child. There's a lot of excitement in the air. And I remember she was telling me that, what was topmost on her mind before he came was that, what am I going to wear for
the naming ceremony?
And I'll tell you what happened to that naming ceremony, which eventually we had in the hospital because she was in the hospital for 3 weeks with the baby after our son came. So, like he said, also for all our children, I want to be in the labor room. And so when he came out, something just felt wrong with what his skin and all that. I was very happy when he came out because I saw, wow, this is what happens here. I actually shed a tear. And when he came up, she saw it immediately. Says, why is his eyes like that? Why is his skin like that? So the doctor, who was very experienced, called me and said, your son has a skin condition. He opened the book. She opened the book.
Pediatrician,
to the
actually,
pediatrician,
not the person that took the delivery.
Yeah, she's a pediatrician. She opened the book and pointed to what he had. and he says is, in general terms, it was called ichthyosis. Later on, we found out that ichthyosis also has various types, and the one he had was ichthyosis
Lamellar ichthyosis.
Lamellar ichthyosis. And what that means is that you and I, we have, we shed our skin, but it's not noticeable because over time, because it's slow process. So as your own skin, most of us, it's working at maybe a rate of 100. But what's happening is that he's working at the rate of 100 million. So
that's just a figure.
That's just a figure.
Just to
was
give you an
working
idea.
so fast that he's shedding it, but because he can't shed it, it comes up as a build-up of skin, and over time, then dry skin. But he was born as what we call a collodion baby. A collodion baby means that he was born in like a, thin film. So it's like a thin film that held his whole body. So it was when you put thin film on something. So he was born that way. And when the thing broke, it was like bruises on his body and all that. So that doctor knew what it was. So they referred us to a general hospital. And when we got to that general hospital, we started to find out a few things about it, even on our own. Ichthyosis is what you have in 1 in 200,000 babies. But in this part of the world, you actually do not have it, because one of the consultants we finally met there, who worked with him for several years, said that maybe
that's in one in like maybe 20
maybe
years
this is the second one she's seeing in 20 or 22 years. So there's not a lot of information about it. And so that's what happened. And from that hospital that day, immediately 2 hours after I was born, a nurse took him in my car, and we went to the general hospital. To Luz. And she was still in the hospital. And my mother-in-law, that's her mom, was around. And she said, "Oh, I'm going to stay in the hospital. Kunle, go home." This was maybe about 10 p.m. at night and all that. So that's where that story started, and she had to come. And I must say that it was right from there we started to see some form of
you mean discrimination?
Discrimination. I mean, right from the hospital, because my mother-in-law is a very strong person. And, that night, one of the nurses said something derogatory about the baby, and she stood up to him, stood up to her.
The night the baby was born?
The night the baby
who
was
wants this baby? In a very Yoruba, in a very derogatory term.
Derogatory Yoruba.
My mom said, she said,
me. And she looked very, what do you call it, up, and she said, "It's me." She said she was taking about. So you started seeing that. So I don't know if there are...
Well, so that's really the story. And
how did you feel when you saw the baby? What was the...
I don't know. I think I felt very calm. I didn't have time to should I say, maybe pity myself or something, because I remember that they went straight to the hospital, to Luz, after leaving me in the hospital where I had the baby. And then the next day I followed, and I remember it was from that day that we had to do all the, in Luz, you have to do all the tests, you have to, so I'd just had the baby. He was with me for a while, but he had to go to work or something, I can't remember. But for some reason, I had to go to this place, go to that place. So I also didn't have a lot of time to process it and all that. And I think I think it's God's grace, and because it was also our first baby, I felt like, let's just do this, and then of course we're praying and all that. God, we believe you for healing this thing, because what we had read said, under that scale, under the collodion film, some children, when they shed that skin, that normal skin comes, that not every baby, gets, so we started praying that, oh, this one, don't worry, we will. But of course, no, of course, but I mean, that wasn't the case with us. And I remember, talking about discrimination, I remember also in the hospital at that time, I was in the hospital for 3 weeks. And in that time, there were other parents of newborns. But everyone there had a child that was severely ill. And we were all there. And, I remember a particular day, the child to my left died, the child to his right died, so I think I was just grateful that he was alive and he was thriving. And of course, they didn't know much of what to do, but they kept him alive. They kept him free from infection because, of course, as the skin is, breaking off, the child is susceptible to infection. So there was a lot of that kind of care and all that. And there was also, amongst the women, I remember one woman that kept saying, cover him, because they didn't want to see the skin, because it wasn't very pleasant to look at, you understand? So there was that discrimination from that time. And then when we left the hospital...
And before we left the hospital, we also noticed there were quite a few things. He didn't have eyebrows.
He didn't have eyebrows.
Then
he didn't have eyelashes.
Eyelashes. His eyes did not close because
it's called an ectropion, which is because of the skin stiffness of the skin.
So, and it was dangerous because things could fly into his eye. So they were even thinking of operating it, but after a few days, things just
eyelashes started growing, eyebrows started growing, he started closing his eyes with time. So there were those kinds of miracles, because really, what if he had continued and they had to operate? They didn't have to, and all that. And of course, by the time we got home, I didn't go to church for like 4 months, like you. I didn't go to church for 4 months and all that. I was on maternity leave because I was still working. I still had a full-time job. So it was meant to be 3 months. I took an extra month off. But at the end of the 4 months now, you have to go back to life and all that. And for me, one thing that happened, so people would come, some people you would show, some people you would, depending on who they were and all that, But I think it's important to share the first day I went to church. On the first day I went to church, we carried him. Of course, people are, your baby, congratulations, and all that. He didn't have hair, his hair was just growing. It didn't look like a typical baby and all that. And so I carried him. My mom said, wrap him very well. We wrapped him and all that. I think it was, maybe we did dedication or something and all that. So when at the end of it, of course, everybody was coming around and all that. But I remember that I felt this urge to run back into the car to hide. But something said to me, Bimbo, if you hide this baby today, you will keep hiding him forever. So I carried him. And then I went to all the places I would normally go to before I had him. I went to the bookshop, I went to so that everybody will see him as he is and all that. And I think that was, for me, was a liberating process. Otherwise, because I knew that, we don't know how long we're going to live with this thing. So better let everybody see him the way he is. And I think that was, for me, very therapeutic and helpful.
Wow, that's amazing. That's, I don't even know how to put that, but getting to that point in just 4 months, if you ask me, with my own experience and having talked with people, that's quite amazing. Because during my journey with vitiligo, I remember, sharing with people how I decided one day, when at the peak of it, when I was still, all white to here. So that day I just said, okay, I'm going to go to Balogun Market, that I want to know today if stairs kill. People staring at me if it's going to kill me today. And I brought out this cotton spaghetti strap that I've had for long. I said, and I'm going to wear it, my neck all here. If I wear it, it was going to expose everywhere. And I wore it. I think it took me like 20 minutes before I agreed with the door to open the door. I'll get to the door will push me back, and I'll come back. We did this back and forth, and I eventually got out of the door. And I took a bus. I got to the Balogun Market. I did not buy anything. I did not buy 15 naira granite. I was just walking around, go there. Within me, I was like, I'm still alive. They're staring, they're making comments, and this is me. Like, I left the market like 6, the peak time where people were going home. And when I go to the house, even alone, I closed it and I was screaming, I made it. It was just like what you did, getting to that point. I didn't have